Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, September the 16th, and welcome to our commentary. Well, want to begin by wishing all of our Mexican friends, and obviously we have many, happy Independence Day. It was on this day in 1810 that a priest, Miguel Hidalgo, basically shouted Mexican independence. It was known as El Grito. He basically shouted Mexican independence. And that began the effort, of course, the Revolutionary War against the Spanish crown. Now, it took a while. It took a while. It didn't just happen overnight. But eventually, Mexico became independent, and the neighbor that we've had all of these years. Now, so what happened today in 1810 is maybe somewhat similar to, let's say, July 4th, when the American colonies declared their independence. Well, on this day, Mexico declared its independence. But just like the experience with the American colonies, it took a while. It took a while for that to actually happen, for independence to actually happen. But I had an opportunity when I lived in Mexico to watch some of the events, and it's really exciting to watch it. There are parades and a big celebration in El Zócalo, which is that big place in Mexico City. And then, of course, usually the president of Mexico will travel to the church where Father Hidalgo shouted independence, and he rings a bell and he waves a flag. And it's fun to watch. They do it every year, of course. But I had a lot of time watching it for the first time. It's interesting. It's interesting to watch. So on this day in 1810, Mexico declared its independence, and we salute all of our Mexican friends who remember and celebrate that today. The way it's actually celebrated is that it starts on midnight the 15th and it goes into the 16th. So that's kind of how they celebrate this day. So happy Independence Day to all of our Mexican friends. Well, I have a post over at the American Thinker today. I'm going to recommend that you check it out, because I have another one coming out Saturday morning, and they're both related, and they're both basically, we're talking about the collapse of our cities. Our major cities are collapsing in front of us. My post on Friday today is about San Francisco, how San Francisco, people do not want to go to San Francisco. The businesses are having a very difficult time attracting people to go back into the city. Now, part of the problem is that many of these people have the kinds of technical jobs where they can do, they can work from home. But the real problem is not that they want to work from home. The real problem is the hassle of going to San Francisco, the lawlessness, the crime, people just hanging around in the streets. It's an awful thing. It's an absolute awful thing to have to, walk around and operate around. And many people are simply saying, we're not going back. We're not going back. And they're not going back. And that, of course, has a huge impact on office rent, on office space, and just the overall quality of life in San Francisco. So you have a city like San Francisco that for a very long time was one of the most elegant cities in North America. I mean, San Francisco had this great reputation, the city by the bay, the bridge, the buildings, the different communities. It had a tremendous reputation, a beautiful city in any by any description. And today it's just a collapsing, just totally collapsing city. It doesn't have anything going for it. Now they're trying to put it back together, but until they tackle the problem of crime, and until they're willing to put people in jail for violating the law, then nothing is going to happen. They also, another thing they got to do, they got the same problem in LA. They're just going to have to pick up these homeless people and move them out of the downtown area, because they're not helping anything just laying there in the downtown area. You have drug addiction. I mean, it's a horrible problem. That's San Francisco, and I think to some extent you can see that in LA too. They have other problems as well in LA. Now, on Saturday morning, I have a post about what's happening in Chicago. You may have heard that the CEO of McDonald's, the fast food restaurants, the CEO is saying that he cannot get people to work in the Chicago restaurants or the McDonald's in Chicago because people don't want to go to the city to work because they fear the crime. They fear that if they're driving home or they could be attacked or whatever. And Chicago is having the same problem. Crime is overtaking the city of Chicago, and people cannot function. People cannot function. When one of the most important things in any society is that you have to have order. It doesn't have to be a police state. That's one extreme. And it doesn't have to obviously go to the other extreme of lawlessness, but there's got to be some reasonable point where the streets are safe, and the police, of course, is accountable. What's happened here is that it's gone to the extreme where the criminals are the ones who are basically controlling the cities. They're the ones who are running the streets. They're the ones who are operating without any fear that anything's going to happen to them. They get arrested on Monday, they're back in the street on Tuesday. It's that ridiculous. And you're seeing these efforts in LA to, recall one of the district attorneys. They did it in San Francisco. They're trying to do it in other places. But these cities, whether it's New York City, whether it's Philadelphia, Baltimore, Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, Portland, Minneapolis, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, St. Louis, all of them, and there's more. Those are the ones that came to my mind. There's a lot more. And these cities are simply falling apart. And they're falling apart because there's no respect for the law. When there's no respect for the law, then the criminals are the ones running the city. And when that happens, then you have the kinds of lawlessness and breakdown that you're seeing in many of these cities. So our blue cities are collapsing in front of us. And it's really up to the voters now. It's up to the voters. They're going to have to decide in November whether they want to continue with this or not. They have to decide whether or not they're going to continue with this. And let's see what they decide. But we do know one thing is that the collapse of the blue cities is having a terrible economic impact on these cities because taxpayers are moving out, businesses are closing, and if people don't feel like going to downtown, let's say for dinner or to watch a show or to watch a movie or whatever, that has an impact, a terrible impact on your businesses and their ability to hire people or to pay taxes, because after all, businesses pay a lot of taxes, as you know. So we call it the collapse of the blue city. And that is really a shame. That is one of the worst legacies of Democrat control of these cities. Just an absolutely horrible story. So I recommend you check out my article today at the American Thinker about San Francisco. And as I say, I have one about the city of Chicago coming out Saturday morning. This whole week, I guess for the last week or so, we have seen a lot of ceremonies out of the UK with the passing of the Queen and some of the ceremonies and the different traditional things that happen when the king or the queen dies. Now, for many of us, this is the first time we've seen it because this is, for many of us, the only queen, the only monarchy we knew. I mean, she became the queen in 1952. So how many other did we see? I had never seen another one. So the ceremony, the pageantry is interesting. I'll just put it that way. It's really nice to see tradition. I'm a big tradition guy. So it's very nice to see all that tradition, all that pageantry. I don't really care, and I have to say it quite bluntly, I don't really care about the rift between the two brothers or between the two ladies. That kind of stuff honestly doesn't do anything for me. It goes in one ear and out the other because I really don't care about that. It doesn't mean anything. It's just gossip, and it's the kind of garbage that I know some people really get into it, but I don't. I really don't care about it. And but I do find a lot of the tradition and a lot of the things that that we're seeing on television to be rather nice. Let me say hello to my friend. I am good to see you, buddy. But I don't really care for the tradition. It's just not. Um, it's just not that's something that frankly appeals to me. So well, I guess the final funeral, she'll be buried formally on Monday, and President Biden is going, and lots of other people are going as well. So we'll say our final farewell to the Queen. But so far, what I've seen, it's been pretty classy and pretty impressive. And even for someone like me, I'll say it again, who's not really into any of this of the monarchy story or any of it, frankly. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch. We've never seen it before, and that kind of, the military pageantry and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy that. I enjoy that. So I'm getting a kick out of it. I hope some of you are as well. But on Monday it'll be King Charles III, and then we'll see how he does. I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be very different. It's going to be very different for him because he's going to be king of a country that is very different than the one his mother inherited back in 1952. We wish him well, but England has a lot of problems, a lot of economic problems that the new prime minister is going to have to deal with, and they're not pretty. Let me just tell you, they're not. They're not pretty. Well, on this day in 1620, let's say goodbye with this little story. On this day in 1620, speaking of England, the men and women who came on the Mayflower departed. I think it was from London that they departed to the New World. They came in that ship, called the Mayflower, that landed, I believe it was Plymouth, what came to be known as Plymouth Rock. And then they began the settlement of North America. And I guess in many ways, the beginning of the United States, or the nation that we now call the United States. Now, there was another colony in Virginia at that time. There had been a settlement in Virginia before that, but clearly the Mayflower, we associate that with the beginning, and it's a great little story. By the way, that movie that came out with Spencer Tracy came out many, many years ago, called the Mayflower Compact. I think that's what it's called. They show that around Thanksgiving usually. It's a great movie. I liked it a lot. But I would encourage you to watch it because it kind of tells you, it's a movie version, of course, and movie versions are not always the best, but this one is pretty good. Tells you the story of the Mayflower and how they came, and the men and women who came in that Mayflower. I mean, I always enjoy that movie. They put it up every year, as I say, around Thanksgiving, and it's a fun movie to watch. Well, enjoy your weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas. We're going to do a podcast on Sunday night with our good friend George Rodriguez. We'll probably do a video as well. We haven't quite worked that out yet. We'll probably do a video as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Texas with the governor's race and some of the other issues. And for example, these people who are being sent to different parts of the country, like Martha's Vineyard, the island, I guess it's called, and Chicago and other places, and the reaction, the reaction from many of these places, which is really fascinating. The reaction from many of these places. Let me say hello to Eric. How are you, Eric? Thanks for joining us. The reaction in many of these places around the country. I mean, these sanctuary cities that all of a sudden are not being very friendly, and we know what's happening. We know what's happening. It takes a lot of resources to take on people like, that many people like this. We're doing it here in Texas, and it's very costly to say the least. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. This is Silvio Canto, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.